We want to warn you, this next story has some disturbing images. An Al Jazeera reporter was shot and killed while covering an Israeli raid in the West Bank. Imtiaz Tyab is tracking the latest developments and joins us now from London. So, Imtiaz, I guess first off, what are we learning about what happened? What do we know?
Anne-Marie, Vlad, good to you. Well, what we do know is that in the early hours of this morning, Shireen Abu Akleh, a journalist for Al Jazeera, was in Jenin, which is a town in the West Bank area, Palestinian territory, where we understood that there was some sort of confrontation between Israeli forces and armed Palestinian gunmen. We understand that there was some gunfire going on, and that Abu Akleh woke up that morning and decided to go and see what was happening there. Very soon after arriving there, we've seen, of course, this frankly unfortunate image of her lying face down, wearing her flak jacket, which is, her bulletproof vest, clearly with press written on it, and of course her helmet on her as well. And we've later learned that she was shot in the head. Now, we've heard from Al Jazeera, her employer, which says quite unequivocally that Israeli forces shot their journalist, the Palestinian Authority, saying the same thing as well. We then very quickly heard from the Israeli leadership saying that they believe that she had been caught in gunfire from those Palestinian assailants. But we've now since then have seen Israeli military officials walk back from that a little bit. In fact, we've heard from Lieutenant General Avi Kochavai, if I'm saying that correctly, saying that, quote, "At this stage, we cannot determine by whose fire she was harmed with and regrets her death." So a lot of dueling statements there at the time. We, of course, are also hearing from the U.S. as well. And the reason we're hearing from the U.S. is that she was also an American citizen. We heard from Ned Price, the State Department spokesperson, who called her death an affront to media freedom. Of course, also hearing from the U.S. ambassador to Israel, who said he was very sad to learn of this death and called for an investigation. Again, as we were saying from the State Department as well, saying that they're heartbroken and strongly condemn the killing of the American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. But all of these statements, of course, really just underscore the fact that a well-known and much beloved journalist was killed doing her job.
Yeah, Imtiaz, we know that there was another journalist that was injured alongside Shireen. What do we know of the condition of that individual? Because I'm guessing that once that person is out of the hospital, hopefully that they will be able to answer some of these questions that people have.
Yeah, his name is Ali Saboudi. He, of course, is a journalist as well, as you rightly point out. He was shot in the back, has been taken to hospital and is in stable condition. And again, we, of course, will no doubt be hearing from him to help us better understand what happened there. Now, again, as we've been saying early on, the Israeli government and Israeli media suggested that Shireen may have been shot in this crossfire in this area, which has been very tense. We have to say that Jenin, which is part of it is a refugee camp where Palestinians displaced from the creation of Israel many, many years ago live. It's a densely populated area. It's an area which has seen a lot of tension over the past few weeks and months, and of course has also had a large Israeli military presence there as well. And again, what we've been reading and what we've been seeing, including from Israel's own leading human rights agency, this, of course, is an agency which monitors Israel's military actions inside the West Bank, which, of course, Israel occupies. B'Tselem says that they have their own evidence, which categorically denies any suggestion that Shireen could have been shot by these Palestinian assailants, as it was initially described, which could perhaps explain why Israel's narrative is shifting. But again, as we try to figure out what happened here, we have to remember that this was, again, a journalist who was doing her job. She was clearly marked as a journalist. She was wearing the appropriate clothing. Again, press on her chest. She was wearing a helmet. Yes, she was in a very tense place, but we have to understand that Shireen Abu Akleh is a very experienced journalist. She's been doing this job for over 30 years. She has covered every event you can imagine when it comes to Israel and Palestine. She was there covering, the death of Yasser Arafat. She was there covering the first Intifada, or rather the second Intifada. She has been there to cover many, many, many moments in Palestinian history, and she is very well known across the Palestinian world. But I really want to stress the fact that she was an extremely experienced journalist, and so a lot of journalists who knew her, a lot of people who worked with her, very sad indeed, but also begging or really asking and demanding answers for the fact of how could she have been killed. Again, somebody so experienced, but more importantly, was not very clearly in the line of fire, at least according to B'Tselem, Israel's top human rights watch group, and indeed was wearing the right clothing, if you will, in that sort of environment. How she could have been shot, frankly, in the face as she was. So many, many questions, but a lot of grieving people. We've been seeing the streets of Ramallah and indeed other areas of people who've just come out to the streets with tears in their eyes. They're just so devastated by her killing. Again, really somebody who is very well known, not just amongst Palestinians, but across the Arab world.
Imtiaz, I'm glad that you're sort of reinforcing that she has done this for decades. I know that you've covered the region, Vlad, you've covered the region. You have covered other areas where there is conflict. Can you give us a sense of some of the precautions that journalists take to ensure that they can safely cover this sort of stuff? You mentioned that, and we could see she has her jacket on. It's clearly labeled press. You could see from very far away who she is.
And just to underscore that, Imtiaz, the fact that this could have potentially been a sniper, that is one of the reports that we've seen about this. Again, presumably these individuals are highly trained. If you're a sniper, if you are a soldier who is trained to be a sniper, you typically are incredibly well trained. So these are some of the questions that people are going to have. How does something like this happen?
Incredibly well trained, as you rightly point out, Vlad, but also one would imagine killing a journalist would be a red line, would be something that would never happen. Now, at this stage, we can't say equivocally what's happened. Again, Al Jazeera, the company she worked for, saying that she was murdered by Israeli forces. We're hearing that from the Palestinian Authority as well. Now we have Israel promising to investigate. We have the U.S. calling for an investigation. And so until we find out exactly what happened to Shireen, we will have to really just sort of focus on the fact that she was, as you rightly point out, Anne-Marie, a very experienced journalist. Full disclosure, I know Shireen. I used to work with her. We used to see each other in protests in the West Bank where, frankly, things were really tense. And she was somebody who knew how to operate and navigate in those spaces. She was somebody who was also not prone to putting herself in harm. She cared about her teams, she cared about her colleagues, and she cared about her own safety. And so it is really hard to digest just how somebody so experienced, somebody who was dressed, frankly, appropriately for that sort of an incident, for lack of a better phrase, and someone with such regional awareness to frankly, be killed like this. As you point out, Vlad, there are those who say that she was killed by sniper fire. Israel has not confirmed this, but if this is the case, it of course is a very troubling indictment, really, of the situation in the West Bank. We have to remember that for many decades now, journalists in the West Bank have been shot at with rubber-coated steel bullets, have been tear gassed, have had what's known as skunk water sprayed at them, which is this putrid spray which lingers for days and days and days. It is a tough job. They are tear gassed constantly as they try to record what is happening in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and areas where we've seen so much conflict. And Shireen was one of the most visible people doing that job. Again, a job she's been doing for 30 years. So for her to lose her life in this way, it really begs the question, is anybody is really safe when doing that job and covering that story? And very quickly, Anne-Marie, You asked the question, how do you prepare for that sort of thing? You know, in short, we as journalists, whether it's working in places like the West Bank where we see eruptions of violence, or indeed Ukraine or Afghanistan, or sadly other places where violence happens, and sadly journalists sometimes get caught up in that, is we try to take what I call calculated risks based off of our knowledge of the region, our understanding of the situation on the ground, and our own ability to navigate these conflicts, navigate these spaces. Of course, there's human error. Journalists don't always get it right. There are forces on the ground sometimes that either want to target us, forces on the ground sometimes that don't care that we're there, and we can get caught up in the violence. But all of that, of course, is small comfort to Shireen's family and her colleagues, and of course all of those people who have been watching her for so many years bring the stories of Palestinians, bringing the stories of her own community. Shireen is somebody who is extremely well known, not least because of the time she spent doing this job, but because she really was a trailblazer. You know, she started this, started her job as a journalist in the mid-90s. There are very few Arab women who were doing what she was doing on television, and she really blazed a trail for many other Arab women to do the same. And so, you know, I've reported on a lot of places across the Middle East, and there are so many women Arab journalists on the ground documenting what's happening in their countries, in their communities, to people who look like them, with fearlessness, with integrity, with dignity, all in search for the truth. And Shireen was a real trailblazer when it came to that, and she blazed a trail for so many women to come behind her. And so as we try to understand what exactly happened to her, as we try to find some accountability for her death, there's a lot of people also reflecting on her legacy, reflecting on everything that she gave to journalism, gave to women who aspired to be journalism, and perhaps most importantly, the voices that she amplified in her reporting. You know, journalism in the Middle East, especially in this sort of Arab ecosystem for a very long time, was very macho, much like media was for the Western world as well. And what Shireen was known for was bringing the voices of people who weren't heard. That was grieving mothers. It was centering the voices of people who are often not heard of or left out of the violence or the geopolitics. She was always there centering those voices. In fact, in her own words, she said, "I might not be able to change anything on the ground, but as long as I can give voice to people, then I'll have done my job." And that is who Shireen was.
Sounds like a tremendous loss.
It really does, Imtiaz. And you coming here to share your memories of Shireen, your understanding of what it takes to do that job, but also the challenges that were unique to her, being a woman in the Arab world, reporting from some of the most dangerous places in the region. You've memorialized her. And so we thank you for that. Obviously, we are so sorry for your loss. I know that you knew her very well. You worked with her, and you told me that she inspired you as well. And so may her memory be a blessing to all those who knew her and who loved her, and certainly for those who found a voice through her reporting. That is also where our hearts lie. Imtiaz Tyab, thank you very much.
Thank you. A very sad day indeed.